Mortimer Gallbone put away his backhoe after digging Old Lady Threnodity's plot in the CC4 section of Windhaven Cemetery. It was a bright, clear Tuesday afternoon, not much past 2 o'clock. Springtime had come early to this neck of the woods. 13 minutes later, everything would change. Graveyards in Indiana can look particularly creepy in low-lying rural areas. Grieving relatives have been known to sink in mud up to their ankles while engaging in simple acts such as placing plastic flowers on a loved one's grave or just admiring the middle American landscape. Tuesday afternoon in Windhaven, Indiana can be a rather daunting time for some, especially when the godkins who control overcast skies make their way in off the river. Mortimer walked several paces away from the shed where he kept all his work time thingies, then removed his husky, faded brown leather gloves. As he ran his right hand over the back of his sweaty, twinging neck, squinting in the intense sunlight, he noticed a faint glow emanating from inside the tool place, ever so patiently leaking under the door. This was followed by a sound of bees. No, wasps, or whatever. Was it just my imagination, he thought? No, I heard it. Then the sunlight faded into incoherent darkness for a brief spell. Then the overcast returned and the place looked more mausoleum-like than ever. Then it began to rain. It rained for only 13 seconds. Mortimer had timed it on his trusty old Timex wristwatch. God bless that John Cameron Swayze fella. The strangeness and the brevity of the freak rainstorm had begun to play startling musical sequences along Mort Gallbone's spine. Could any of this have to do with... Nah. Rumors had frequently circulated about Grandma Threnody and her mystical powers, her dabblings in the occult. She had told folks in no uncertain terms before she'd met her maker that she was coming back to haunt 'em all for treating her like white dust. She had even cursed her future gravesite with toad entrails just a fortnight less a day before she'd finally crapped the bucket. To the dust she had returned, but now had she risen from the dust like some unholy knock-kneed avenger, the queen of dark heaven and support hose? The very thought of it was enough to raise goose flesh on the back of Mortimer's salty neck. The glow under the shed door had abated, the sun had come back out like a freshly cut flower, and Mort had collected his wits again like rainwater in the family cistern. So much for the grandmother of hell, he chuckled. Smiling the smile of the unflinching rapscallion, Mortimer hacked and spat contemptuously on the ground. Sorry, Granny, you'll have to try harder than that to make me soil my drawers. Eat my filthy soul, you old witch. The night of the big town dance had arrived. Mortimer was looking forward to kicking up his heels with the widow Waldheiser to the strains of the Wabash Cannonball. The thought then struck Gallbone that old Lady Threnody had been buried for 13 days already. Ever since the funeral, Mort hadn't felt too well, physically or emotionally. The night after digging Granny Threnody's plot, at around 3 a.m., Mort had started to get recurring migraines. He was puzzled by the pain in his temples because it had waited to start aching a good 13 hours after digging. While out on the dance floor with the widow Waldheiser, Mortimer Gallbone felt light as a feather. The dance tonight was the best dope for both of them. She could take her mind off the late Mr. Waldheiser, and Mort could take his mind off... Oh, blast! Those annoying cluster migraines again. Mortimer excused himself politely, then stepped outside for a breath of air. He was never heard from again. A whole mess of radioactive garden implements had assailed him mercilessly once he'd gotten far enough outside the Windhaven dance hall that his screams couldn't be heard by the patrons inside. No sign of his remains has ever been found to this day. Upon excusing himself from the dance pavilion, Mortimer Gallbone had known instinctively that his number had been called. As he had lain helplessly on the ground, battered and bleeding, he'd been sure of only one thing. He had counted a total of 13 garden implements in all.